How is it possible that somewhere this beautiful could also be the setting for so much sadness? Filoli is one of the last truly intact country estates from California's early 20th century golden era. Set high above the Crystal Springs Reservoir, William Bourne II, who made his fortune in gold, water, and electricity, the very industries that shaped California's growth, built a home here that rivaled some of the greatest estates in Europe. He even once told a friend that he hoped to grow young here at Filoli, but for a place designed to restore him, the opposite quietly unfolded. Illness, the loss of a child, and the heavy reality that great fortune doesn't shield you from life's most painful chapters. In many ways, Filoli stands as a monument to California's industrial rise, but it also is a reminder that even with all of the money in the world, life doesn't always go as planned, and that sometimes excess can result in heartache, making that phrase, more money, more problems, a little all too real. Today, we're touring the historic Filoli House Gardens, exploring each room, the design details within, the original art and decor curated across multiple families, the luscious gardens outside just in time for spring, while learning about the families behind it all, and discovering what this level of beauty ultimately cost some of them to create. Hi, I'm Allie, and welcome back to Fab Little Dish, where we celebrate the love for vintage home. Make sure to hit subscribe and that thumbs up button if you love seeing these historic house tours coming your way each and every week. Trust me, the lineup for this year is epic, and you don't want to miss out. But for now, let's head into my backyard in the Bay Area, to Woodside, California, and experience Filoli together. A Bay Area native, William Bourne II was born in 1857 and raised in San Francisco, in a family whose fortune was tied to California's mining boom. While William Bourne II was away at school, his father, William Bourne I, was building something of his own in San Francisco. By the early 1870s, the Bourne family had expanded their wealth through the Empire Mine, and with that prosperity, they built a grand, beautiful townhouse in San Francisco as a visible marker that their fortunes had risen alongside California's gold economy, and that house still stands today. But that chapter turns quickly. In 1872, tragedy struck when Bourne's youngest son was killed after accidentally falling from a wall at this very home. The loss devastated the family. Mrs. Bourne began spending more and more time away at their country property in Napa. And then, in 1874, as the Empire Mine entered its third year of sitting idle, and with financial pressures mounting, William Bourne died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in his bathroom in the San Francisco house. Newspapers reported it as suicide. Friends insisted it was a tragic accident, but he wasn't even close to being broke, which makes one wonder about the reason for the gunshot wound in the first place. William Bourne I never was able to get over the death of his son, and that depression might have had something to do with this, a depression that William II, unfortunately, will be able to relate to all too well later on in life. William I left his fortune, mines, and properties to his wife, Sarah Esther Burnett, where their son, William II, would come and step in to help his mother manage affairs whenever she needed it. After his death here in 1874, the family sold the old Bourne home to George Hearst, the father of America's first giant media mogul, who was raised as a teenager here before starting school at Harvard. But we'll save that story for another episode. William II studied at Cambridge in England, and while he was there, he fell in love with everything English, the lush gardens, the sense of tradition. But that happy moment of bliss was cut short when in 1878, at just 21, the same year he was supposed to graduate, William was called home to deal with an urgent matter regarding the family's Empire Mine business, and that pivot would end up shaping everything that later came for William, including Filoli. His late father's Empire Mine in Grass Valley had apparently hit a wall. The shaft seemed to have bottomed out around 200 feet, and the experts told his mother Sarah to shut it down, but William didn't. He insisted that they kept on digging, and against all advice, he strikes gold, making his late father's mine into one of California's most legendary gold mines, and one of the richest gold mines in the country, worth over $8 billion today. That instinct, the stubborn Bourne luck, which is something he and his father very much had in common and contributed to both of their successes. And then in 1883, the mine delivers again, a much richer strike down around the 1,700-foot level, and right around that same chapter of his life, William meets Agnes Moody, a New Yorker from Yonkers, from a good family with her own strong social footing. They marry and have a daughter, Maud. They also have a baby boy, William Bourne III, who tragically dies shortly after birth. Agnes completely throws herself into motherhood and devotes herself to her daughter, becoming very involved in her studies. Similar to that Gilded Age Newport society culture on the East Coast, Agnes raises her daughter with that similar turn-of-the-century belief that beauty, education, culture, and refinement were part of building a legacy. By 1905, Bourne helps consolidate utilities into what becomes the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, and he also leads the Spring Valley Water Company, which supplied San Francisco's water from the Crystal Springs Reservoir, the same landscape you're about to see wrapped around Filoli. Then, the Great Quake of 1906, and the fires that followed, shattering San Francisco and changing the way wealthy families thought about safety, permanence, and the very idea of home in this area. And for many of the city's elite, that meant leaving San Francisco behind and building their homes farther down the peninsula and creating something far grander and more spacious. And William Bourne II already had his eye on a part of California as his potential future home before the massive quake even hit. He had spent years quietly acquiring land overlooking the Crystal Springs Reservoir. The rolling slopes and reflective water reminded William and Agnes of Muckross, the grand Irish country estate they had purchased as a wedding gift for their daughter, Maud. Filoli would echo that same sense of permanence and pastoral beauty, but right here in California. And yet, like so much of California, the hillside lies within reach of the San Andreas Fault, a quiet reminder that even in places built for stability, the ground beneath you is never entirely still. Acquiring that much property took time, negotiation, and strategy, but by 1915, the land was finally consolidated and ground was officially broken. To design Filoli, they hired architect Willis Polk, who gave them a grand English-inspired estate home. Formal, symmetrical, and incredibly intentional in how it sits on the land that it is built around. And then, to match that level of intention outside, the gardens were designed as their own world, structured, immersive, and meant to be walked through, like a sequence of outdoor rooms. Polk combined the traditional English styles of the Georgian and Stuart periods to create a Georgian Revival English country home with 56 rooms laid out in a U-shaped design. Construction took about 2 years and cost over $425,000 at the time, roughly about $11 million today. And that doesn't even begin to include the gardens, the collections inside, and honestly, the upkeep alone has to be insane, especially today. Just as maintaining a place like this, the staff, the landscaping, the repairs, it's a full-time operation. While Polk was in charge of the house, Bourne hired artist, designer, and all-around Renaissance man Bruce Porter to design the gardens. The garden is made up of 2 different garden styles. Near the house is the Georgian style, which takes advantage of the views to the west and to the north of the gorgeous reservoir. And to the south of the house is the English Renaissance style, which is a more formal, intricate pattern of garden rooms, similar to what you would see in Europe. More than a mile of hedges function as walls to separate the gardens into rooms, giving a very whimsical feel overall. From outside, the facade is all about balance and control, classic Georgian symmetry, clean lines, and that quiet, powerful look that feels timeless. It's formal, composed, and very intentional in how it embraces the land surrounding it. Bourne always called Filoli his place to grow young, but the opposite actually ends up happening here. In August of 1921, just 4 years after the family moved in, William Bourne suffers a debilitating stroke while away on business at the Empire Mine, and over the next 15 years, he would endure a series of additional strokes that leave him paralyzed and unable to speak. For a man who built his entire life on control, power, and momentum, it's hard not to feel how brutal that shift must have felt for him. And then, in 1929, the heartbreak turns into something almost unbearable. Their daughter Maud, who lived primarily overseas at Muckross House in Ireland, a property they purchased for her when she got married. She happened to be traveling in Cannes, France, when she got word of her father's worsening condition after yet another terrible stroke. She decided to make a winter crossing of the Atlantic to reach him in time, but Maud never made that ship ride home. She became ill with pneumonia on board and died in February 1929 on the ship at just 46 years old. And even worse, she was traveling with Mr. and Mrs. Bourne's grandchildren, her 2 children, Billy, who was just 9, and Rose, who was 14. And this part really gives me chills. The children then had to travel to New York with their mother in a coffin in the next car on the train from Chicago to San Francisco. A traumatic experience, to say the least. Bourne didn't know she had died, so when he was anticipating the arrival of his daughter, it was not in the way he was expecting. Her body was delivered here, and she's buried on the property. The private cemetery plot is up on a private little knoll, and it also includes their infant son, who had died shortly after birth. Following their daughter Maud's death in 1929, the Bournes and their son-in-law, Arthur Vincent, donated the Muckross estate in Ireland to the estate of the Irish nation in 1932, becoming the first national park in Ireland, known today as Killarney National Park. Bourne never recovers from his daughter's death. He always feels a sense of guilt for bringing her on a journey that would end up costing her her life. He started to age more rapidly and slipped into a state of depression, one that his father also experienced right before his death. In 1936, 7 years after the unfortunate death of their daughter, Agnes Bourne succumbs to pneumonia herself and dies at Filoli. She was 75 years old. William Bourne dies just 6 months later of heart failure. At 79, many say it was really of a broken heart, unable to live the rest of his life without Agnes by his side. And today, the Bourne family rests together on a private knoll, overlooking the estate, a quiet ending for a place that was once built as a dream. After William and Agnes die, many estates like this didn't survive. It was during the Great Depression, so across America, a lot of these kind of lavish homes were abandoned, demolished, or stripped. But by 1937, Lorene Matson Roth and her husband William Roth purchased Filoli. They bought it fully furnished, meaning most of the Bourne-era interiors remain intact to this day. And rather than dismantle the estate, they preserved it entirely. For the next 40 years, the Roth family maintained the house and the gardens, carefully retaining the original structure and the designs. They added their own heirlooms, but they respected what had come before them here. At a time when many Gilded Age estates disappeared, ultimately it was the Roth family who ensured that Filoli would remain open as a gift to the public for future generations to come. And then there's the name. For years, nobody knew where the name Filoli even came from. Eventually, it was revealed that it came from William Bourne's personal motto: fight for a just cause, love your fellow man, live a good life. Filoli. At the height of the Bourne era, up to 35 staff members lived and worked on the estate, handling everything from cooking and housekeeping to gardening and ground maintenance. These weren't just hired hands who came out west. Many lived here for years, some even decades, becoming part of the Bourne and Roth family and having families of their own here as well, really making Filoli a giant family. And life for the estate staff was demanding, from preparing meals, sometimes as many as 9 a day, to polishing silver, maintaining fireplaces, tending to laundry, linens. During the Bourne years, staff worked long days, often 14-hour shifts with just 1 day off every couple of weeks, which was typical for estate life at this time, like the Elms in Newport that we visited just a few weeks ago. Many of the people who worked here weren't local natives. Like many, they migrated out west to California seeking opportunity. By the Roth era, some of the long-serving staff were still here. This made it easy as the estate transitioned between families and decades. Their knowledge of the house and gardens helped preserve the way Filoli functioned, even as the world around it changed. And today, Filoli's mission in connecting history, nature, and community depends on the people who care for it. Stepping up to the front of Filoli feels almost ceremonial, like you're about to enter a place where every detail was meant to signal quiet refinement. The mansion's facade reflects the Georgian Revival style that was popular among Grand Country estates in the early 1900s. As you approach the front portico, you'll notice how the proportions are calm and balanced. And look up at the portico ceiling. The plaster and stonework is beautifully detailed. There's a quiet confidence in here, like the house is welcoming you into a world that values symmetry, proportion, and nature. As soon as you arrived at Filoli, a butler would have quietly shown you into either the ladies' or gentlemen's cloakroom, being a lady myself, or starting in here. And you can tell right away that this isn't just a coat closet tucked off a hallway. It's layered, thoughtful, and very intentional. And I love the little nod to Versailles right here, signifying to their guests that they were cultured and well-traveled. Even the paneling and millwork feel tailored in here, refined but not flashy. And the powder room right here is elegant just on its own, with real marble lining the walls. And I absolutely love the closet in here, with all of the staged, lived-in details. You feel like you've just stepped inside a space, where the ladies just came in right before you and hung up their coats. And gentlemen, step right up. This room mirrors the ladies' cloakroom in both purpose and design. That symmetry at its finest. In estates like Filoli, balance wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about ritual. Entering the house from either side was meant to feel equally considered, equally refined. And again, we see sketches of Versailles, even Venetian scenes as well. The finishes in this cloakroom are quieter than the public rooms that we're about to see, but that restraint is deliberate. It's the kind of space where clean surfaces and neat, tailored details matter. So you're ready for the elegance that awaits you. It's almost as if the room is cleansing your palate before you continue to move throughout the rest of the house. And then we're greeted by this lovely staircase, which is definitely a moment of its own. The light instantly changes in here, the ceiling height opens up, and this dramatic arch window makes everything feel soft and almost cinematic. So it makes sense why this would have been used as a set on different shows and films, such as Rent, and even an 80s show called Dynasty, where there was a first openly gay character featured on a television show, something that the house is very proud of to share. The staircase itself is restrained in the best way. It's letting the proportions do all the work. The curved landing, slim iron railings, and those tall architectural details that make you just feel small in comparison. Unfortunately, we can't head upstairs. These rooms are now used for offices and other event spaces. The ballroom was closed when I originally came here for my tour, so you know I had to come back to bring it to you all. The ballroom at Filoli wasn't just built for entertaining, it was built for personal spectacle. After William Bourne suffered a series of strokes that left him paralyzed and unable to speak, travel was no longer possible for him. And that was a really big deal, because his daughter and grandchildren lived in Ireland, and he adored England, Europe, traveling. It was part of the elite lifestyle of the time. So Agnes and Maud did something extraordinary for him. The walls in this room used to be completely white, and they hired artist Ernest Peixoto and sent him to Ireland to sketch their beloved Muckross estate so it could be recreated here on the walls of this ballroom. For 3 years, Agnes and Maud worked closely with him. Maud even traveled to Paris with the artist Ernest Peixoto to select new lighting fixtures, drapery fabrics, and even the fireplace mantle. And the fireplace is a statement piece on its own, and always leaves me with a lasting impression. It's modeled after the fireplace in the Salon de Hercules at the Palace of Versailles, scaled down of course, but unmistakably French in style. It's a great example of how the Bournes spared no expense when it came to designing this home. The panels were painted in New York, shipped and installed here in 1927. Agnes chose her favorite color to surround the space, this pale sea green, and the murals were painted in a complementary palette that worked in harmony with the overall color scheme here. The chandeliers were custom designed and made in Paris specifically for Filoli. For a space that was meant to be so grand, this whole room feels soft. And I just love the intention behind this space. This room was intentionally designed to evoke a feeling and a memory for William, to bring him to a happy place. That's really what makes this room feel special to me. And this is the gentleman's lounge, and you can definitely feel that this space was meant for company. And of course, a gentleman's lounge wouldn't have been complete without a pool table right in the center here. There's also a card table set up over here in the corner. Especially after World War I, Filoli became known for hosting elaborate dinners, musical events, and even high-stakes poker games. William and Agnes Bourne themselves were not drinkers. They were known for being personally sober. But that didn't mean that Filoli wasn't lively. They still hosted, opened the house up, and wanted it to be enjoyed by everyone who they cared about. Even if they chose not to partake, they genuinely loved hearing the laughter drift throughout the halls of their home. Their daughter Maud, on the other hand, embraced the social world fully, especially where she lived in Ireland, where her entertaining was grand and unapologetic. In 1933, as Prohibition ended, the Bourne family hosted what they called the Drunks' Dinner. By that time, William and Agnes were too ill to come downstairs, but it is said that they were delighted in hearing the celebration echoing throughout the house. Guests roasted each other, emptied Mr. Bourne's wine cellar, and celebrated loudly and triumphantly in William's signature humorous style. You can feel that this space was meant to be enjoyed, and that both families did so to the fullest extent. And the curators here do a great job of creating that feeling as you walk through this room. Look at these bow tie inlays in the hardwood floor, a tiny reference to the original purpose of this space. I love playful little details like these, built right into the architecture itself. There's even a convenient bathroom tucked in here, of course, dressed in marble. Nothing in this house is treated casually. At one point, this room even displayed trophies, just adding to the masculinity of the space and giving it that old world sporting energy almost. And this might be my favorite space in the home, because it just feels the most lived in and personal. During the Bourne years, this was Mr. Bourne's private study, and you can feel the energy that this space must have carried when it served that purpose. The scale, the height, the wood paneling climbing all the way up the walls, matching these tall windows, really elongating the space. There's books and cases surrounding us, and I'm sure a massive desk sat right in the center. There's a safe right over here to the side. It's actually one of multiple vaults originally built into the house. When the Roth family moved in, they softened this space, made it more personal. They turned it into a family den. This is where they watched television together, where they gathered, where they just lived as a family. And the safe, they converted that into a wine cellar, which I honestly just love. It really just shows how the purpose of this space did a complete 180. There's even a hidden bar tucked in right here, which I love. The Roths loved their libations. The retro wallpaper in here immediately stands out, and it just adds to the time capsule energy that this whole room emits. That's why I think this is my favorite space. Every time I come here, I notice something different, and during Christmas, this room completely transforms into a classic Christmas wonderland. With all of this wood and golden light, it felt like stepping into a classic holiday film from the 60s. We also see portraits of Mr. and Mrs. Roth in here, which makes sense because this room was their personal space. It feels more intimate to them. This room carries both stories of both families so beautifully, I feel. One of ambition and wealth that created this space, and the other story of a lighthearted, warm family who added to the memories that were already here when they moved in. Really making Filoli such a statement of family legacy and the respect and tradition of carrying it forward. And look for these little French bulldogs we're going to be seeing throughout the house. This is the first of 5. The Bournes had a French bulldog named Toto, and there's 5 references to him throughout the estate. I think for children when they visit here, they like to give them stickers at the end if they point out where Toto is in all 5 spots of the house. Such a fun little detail throughout that I love. This is the library, and another favorite space of mine in the home. The entire room is wrapped in American walnut, giving the space this warm glow when the light hits it, creating a very old world and traditional feel. This feels almost like it was ripped right from an English manor, which the design was definitely inspired by. The library is making a statement right away, with the portraits staring at us, the books displayed throughout, and the detailed quality craftsmanship we see. A statement of power, which you definitely feel in here, but it does have a softer edge, and I think that's because of all of the personal elements that have been added to this space. The family photos scattered on the table, the portraits that hang with pride, even the original book titles that cover the walls. It's all a reflection of the people who once called this place home. These portraits also bring everything together for me. Mr. and Mrs. Bourne are proudly looking out over the room, which to me is really a statement in itself about making it in this world. I know that I would feel that way if this was my home and my portrait was hanging up right here. What about you? Don't you agree? And we have another Toto sighting right here. Make sure you're keeping track. This is also another space that is just unreal during Christmas time. One year they took a lot of the books down from the walls and they made a big book tree. I loved that idea and I actually want to do it one day. If you want to watch my entire Christmas tour at Filoli, I've made sure to link it in the description below. I don't nearly go into as much detail in that one as I do here, but it's a fun holiday watch to pair with this one if you're interested in seeing more beautiful angles of this house. This is the formal reception room, and this is where you'd meet your host and hostess after exiting either the ladies' or gentlemen's cloakrooms. You can feel the statement this space is making right away. The scale opens right up, the ceilings rise, the parquet floors ground you, and everything that's displayed here feels very curated, collected, and honestly very expensive. I feel like I'm standing in a museum, and that was intentional. This was meant to give you that awe feeling. And of course we see Toto in here again. The scavenger hunt continues. I honestly forget where we're at right now, so I hope somebody's keeping track. And this big, massive textile over the fireplace, it's actually called a table carpet, and this one was woven in the mid-1500s. Pieces like this were originally meant to drape over tables in grand European homes, which is why the detail might look a little dense and flat up here. It's meant to be seen from above. With all of the parties that happened in here, and the candles burning, cigar smoke in the air, guests coming in and out, and just natural weather, and the different elements from the weather over the years, it's incredible that this looks as it does today. And this room saw some serious parties, especially during the Roth years. Some of their events reportedly cost around $100,000 just for the decorations, and at the time, that's insane. Imagine the floral arrangements, the lighting, the music, everything, the food. All of that in here must have just been a spectacle. And now we step into the drawing room. This is the most feminine space in the house. It's softer in here and feels very personal to the ladies of the home. You can feel that intention in the way that the room is styled right away. It's not built for spectacle, it's styled for lingering, for encouraging conversation. That's why the chairs are all set up the way they are. French-inspired gilded mirror, crystal lighting, the way the seating is arranged. This was a room meant for long afternoons and slow evenings. Again, this feels very European, English in style, and I love all of the French details throughout. There's also a hidden door to the side here so staff could move in and out quietly without interrupting the mood, because as we know from our Newport Gilded Age Mansion tours, in grand homes like these, the appearance of effortless was part of the performance. And yes, Toto makes another appearance here. I think we're at 3 now? I can just imagine Mrs. Bourne and Mrs. Roth both hosting tea parties in here, having conversations with friends, and responding to letters and managing the social life of the home, which definitely was a job in and of itself. And here we are in the dining room. Everything darkens in here and feels much more formal instantly. The wood paneling wraps the entire room, and the marble fireplace anchors everything. It all feels like it's been designed for spectacle, which it has. Formal dinners here were not casual. They were carefully choreographed. Multi-courses, sometimes 9. They were timed, everything had to come out on time, every fork and every knife had to be placed in a very specific place for a reason. Every piece of servingware, dish, knife, fork, spoon, everything was selected based on what was being served at that point of the day or night. Oh, and hi Toto. I hope somebody's keeping track. Love how they style this table differently every single time I come here. Today it's decorated for the Lunar New Year, and they have layered in citrus, florals, and vibrant details throughout, which just looks beautiful. And this is the family silver service. Nearly all sterling silver, it contains 18 full place settings, and at formal dinners, you could have up to 28 different forks and knives per setting, depending on the courses that were being served. And there's also hostess serving pieces. So this is quite a set. They were saying that it takes about 5 people to carry this. And then we step right into the butler's pantry, which honestly might be the most important room of the house, because this is where the magic was engineered. All of the elegance that we just saw in the dining room didn't just happen, it came from right here. The glass-fronted cabinetry surrounding us is filled with different sets of china. The estate has over 300 sets of porcelain in the house, different patterns for different times of the day, different seasons, different guests. So dinners were actually carefully designed too when you layer in that detail. There's an electric call board right here, so any room could signal the staff instantly, and a dumbwaiter, so the trays could move between floors, all while remaining unseen. Both of those pieces of technology were absolutely cutting-edge conveniences for an early 20th century estate, and all designed with the invisibility of the staff in mind. And we also have another vault right here. This is the silver safe. The cabinets are even lined with treated silver cloth to slow tarnishing when pieces weren't being used. And that level of detail really tells you how serious the families were about preserving their silver. And the kitchen, the heart of the staff wing. Filoli has a very industrial kitchen. The ceiling alone is 17 feet high, with a gentle cove designed to pull heat and smoke upward during non-stop cooking times. This was a place designed to feed a massive household, the family, the staff, guests. It was made to be able to entertain at scale. The stove stands out immediately, almost like a sore thumb, and that's because it wasn't the first stove that was installed here. Originally, there was a massive oil burning range that ran the full width here, where the stove is, but it actually broke during World War II, and replacing it or fixing it wasn't easy because of wartime manufacturing restrictions. So, since the Roth family owned a fleet of freight and passenger ships through the Matson Navigation Company, they took a maritime stove off of one of their ships and installed it right here. Which is why the doors on it lock, and why there's these big handles right here, because they're designed to be held onto when the ship got rocky. I love that detail. So this thing absolutely was able to help the Roths continue to cook at scale. The massive island in the center was used to prep food and assemble dishes. It really gives you a sense of how busy this kitchen must have felt when they were prepping or cooking, especially for a large event. One of the most memorable staff members who worked at Filoli was their longtime chef, Ki Lao. He cooked here for decades, entirely from memory, blending Chinese techniques, bold spices, with local ingredients from the garden right here, really defining what fusion cuisine was before it even became a thing. There's also spaces tucked to the side that have their own little purposes. A room dedicated to baking so that doughs could rise without being disturbed from the noises of the kitchen. There's dry pantries with ventilated shelving and even a cold storage room for perishables. Everything has its zone. And then we move through this hallway, and it feels very active back here too. We see canning jars, extra linens, chipped porcelain waiting to be repaired, spare candlesticks, odds and ends. It feels very real, like someone just stepped away. Even in a house this grand, things were preserved, mended, stored. Nothing was wasted. And just off over here is a small room that once belonged to John Teague, Filoli's longtime butler during the Roth years. In a house built for entertaining at this grand scale, the butler was the quiet conductor behind it all, overseeing staff, orchestrating the meals. This wasn't an easy job. And having his room set up here is a reminder and a tribute to people like John Teague, because this place wouldn't have been possible without the people who ran it. And then we have this other little room, which almost feels hidden. It's filled with drying herbs and flowers from the garden. And I just love this because it connects everything. The gardens outside also had a very practical use. They stocked the kitchen, they filled the house as arrangements, they were dried, preserved, and reused. It's a full ecosystem at Filoli. And now for another chapter of the tour, the gardens. We pass by the gift shop and then we see these beautiful doors that are almost inviting you to open them. They actually once stood at the front of their San Francisco home, the same home later purchased by the Hearst family. It feels intentional, like they brought a piece of their former life right here with them. And it acts almost like a threshold, welcoming us in to Wonderland. At least that's how it feels to me. Everything immediately opens up in here, welcoming you into the space. This is the sunken garden, and it acts as the living room of the entire garden, the place that brings everything together, the heartbeat, really, of the whole outside here. Seasonal flowers fill the beds, and what I love most about the Filoli Gardens is how it always looks different when I'm here. Everything's always changing, even if I return during the same season. Nothing ever looks the same. The iconic garden house clock tower stands tall. It sits at the far end of the sunken garden, and it's attached to what is now used as the garden house gift shop. The clock tower was part of the original 1917 landscape design and acts as a visual terminus, meaning it anchors the long axial view from the house down into the sunken garden. Renaissance villas used this technique, the Palace of Versailles did, as well as English country estates. Filoli follows that tradition and creates its own California version. Just beyond is the Chartreux Gardens, and this one rewards you when you look a little closer. The boxwood pattern isn't random. The boxwood pattern mirrors the lead tracery of the Jessie tree stained glass window at the Chartreux Cathedral in France. The flowers echo the colors of medieval glass. It's theology translated into landscape design, which is breathtaking to me. Then there's the knot garden, woven herbs braiding through each other like embroidery, lavender, rosemary. Then we have the garden house, this little pavilion tucked into the greenery. Mrs. Bourne would take her afternoon tea in here, and later, the Roths used it for afternoon cocktails. Same ritual, just different era. It's intimate, removed from the house, but always within view of it. A place to step out without ever really leaving. This honestly reminds me of the garden houses on the property of the Palace of Versailles, and this is my favorite personal little nook in the entire outdoor space. And here we have the sundial. The beds become softer. There's bees and butterflies in the air. Spring has sprung. Rejuvenation, rebirth, and reawakenings. The formal lines of the estate gently loosen into something a little more organic up here. The San Andreas Fault runs directly through this estate, two tectonic plates, the North American and the Pacific, meeting beneath your feet. So leaving San Francisco for a safer area isn't actually what ended up happening. The fault line is directly in their own backyard. But there's also something a little meaningful in that in all this order, the precision, the control, and the money, still, you cannot control Mother Nature. William Bourne once said that Filoli might be interesting a few hundred years from now, and I think he was right about that. More than a century later, visitors from all over the world walk these rooms and stand in these gardens to feel something, to be reawakened in some way. As I walk away from Filoli, I keep thinking about how William Bourne designed this place to feel young. And it's such a statement about how money can't buy you all the happiness in the world. What William Bourne valued and cherished the most wasn't his power, wealth, or even Filoli. It was his family, those that he loved and lost. And when he was all alone, he just couldn't bear it all any longer. His body gave out. His family are what kept him strong. And that's really interesting to me because it's so relatable, right? The one thing he valued, we all also have. It doesn't matter what you have or how much of it there is. It's about the people in your life who make you feel whole. I left Filoli and then visited my grandparents. Filoli reminded me to appreciate what I have because it's just as valuable as all of the gold in the world to me. I'm curious to hear what you all took away from this magical place. Please let me know in the comments below. William Bourne built Filoli hoping to grow young here, to restore himself, to create something lasting and extraordinary. And in many ways, he did just that. It isn't just a monument to either the Bournes or Roths' legacies. Filoli is a living and breathing piece of California's history, representing a part of her past that helps us understand her beauty a little more, just like all of the homes that we tour together here on this channel. I hope you all enjoyed touring Filoli Historic Estate and Gardens with me today here in Woodside, California. And truly, thank you to my subscribers, our community members, and those of you who tune in each and every week and also leave comments and give thumbs up. I see you, I hear you, and I appreciate you more than you know. There are so many iconic locations on deck for this year, and I cannot wait to share them with you. So make sure to hit subscribe and that thumbs up button so these can keep coming your way. Until next week, my friends, keep enjoying the beauty of vintage home. Au revoir.